In 1906, thousands of New Yorkers gathered at the Bronx Zoo, not to see lions, not elephants, but to watch a man in a cage, half naked, teeth bared in discomfort. A sign hung above him, African cannibal. His name was Ota Benga. He wasn't a criminal, he wasn't an actor, he was a human exhibit. This isn't a horror story from some faraway dystopia. This is modern history, hidden in plain sight. And Ota Benga was just one of thousands, because for over a century, the Western world caged real people for entertainment. Imagine going to a zoo and finding a family inside a hut, cooking dinner while people point and laugh at them like animals. That was the norm at world fairs across Europe and America from the late 1800s to the early 20th century. Human zoos, also called ethnological expositions, were not accidents or fringe events. They were government-sponsored, widely publicized, and incredibly profitable. At the 1889 Paris Exposition, 28 million visitors walked through the gates. What did they see? Reconstructed villages of African, Asian, and indigenous people, flown in, stripped of their rights, and displayed like objects. These weren't just casual peeks into other cultures. They were crafted performances, often forcing individuals to dance, chant, or reenact rituals that catered to the fantasies of colonial minds. But how did so many people, doctors, scholars, children, walk past these cages without outrage? The answer lies in a dark alliance between science and supremacy. In the 19th century, a new form of science gained traction in Europe: scientific racism. It wasn't based on facts, it was based on hierarchy, a belief system that declared white Europeans as the most evolved and others as primitive or subhuman. Anthropologists, biologists, even museum curators joined the frenzy. They measured skulls, noses, lips, all in a quest to prove racial superiority, and human zoos became their laboratories. Men like Karl Hagenbeck, a German merchant, led the charge. He pioneered the concept of ethnographic villages and organized tours across Europe featuring Sami people from Scandinavia, Nubians from Sudan, and indigenous tribes from the Americas. They were often underfed. Some died during transport, but ticket sales soared. What happens when you strip people of humanity, then make a spectacle out of their suffering? Let's go back to Ota Benga, the man in the cage. He was a Congolese Mbuti man, just 23 years old when he was brought to the United States in 1904. Originally displayed at the St. Louis World's Fair, where 20 million people saw him as part of a pygmy exhibit, he was later transferred to the Bronx Zoo. There he was kept in the primate house, alongside an orangutan. Newspapers called him the missing link. Crowds came in droves. Some mocked him. Others stared in silent horror. But few spoke up. Eventually, African-American ministers protested. They demanded his release. Ota was freed, but never truly healed. He struggled to adapt, ridiculed everywhere he went. In 1916, after years of depression and humiliation, he borrowed a revolver and shot himself in the heart. His death made headlines, but the system that broke him, it continued, stronger than ever. France loved its human zoos, so much in fact that between 1877 and 1931, dozens of exhibits were set up to showcase people from colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Pacific. The 1931 Colonial exhibition in Paris was the crown jewel. 34 million people attended. At the heart of the fair was a massive display of reconstructed villages where over 100 native men, women, and children lived for 6 months under constant surveillance. They had no privacy, no freedom to leave, and sometimes no food. A young girl named Tofau from New Caledonia died during the exhibit. She wasn't the first. She wouldn't be the last. But what about the children born inside these zoos, raised under public eyes, with no memory of a life outside bars? In many human zoos, couples were intentionally placed together to produce babies. The organizers didn't want just performers. They wanted to breed future attractions. In Belgium's 1897 World Fair, the royal family sponsored an African village where 7 Congolese people died due to neglect, but no one was held responsible. Because these deaths weren't seen as tragedies, they were written off as part of the show. One child born in a German exhibit was named Almaz. Her story was wiped from most records, but scattered diary entries describe a girl forced to smile on command, fed raw meat for effect, and beaten if she refused to dance. She vanished at the age of 9. No official documents, no grave. So how did these horrors finally stop? Or did they? Human zoos didn't vanish overnight. They slowly faded, quietly, without apology. After World War II, the Nazi regime's eugenics programs horrified the world. Suddenly, the line between scientific display and inhumane atrocity became harder to justify. But it wasn't ethics that shut them down, it was optics. Governments didn't want to be associated with Hitler's racial theories, even though they'd practiced them for decades in open-air cages. Some exhibits were simply renamed cultural showcases, ethnographic festivals. The cages were gone, but the stage remained. Even in the 1958 Brussels World's Fair, black Congolese were brought in to populate a fake village. They were told to act simple. Visitors threw bananas at them. This happened 13 years after the Holocaust. And just when you think the past is behind us, you realize echoes of these exhibits still exist today. Today, we no longer put people in cages. But the idea of the exotic other hasn't disappeared. It's evolved. Reality shows often parade indigenous communities as spectacles. Tourist experiences offer staged interactions with primitive tribes. Even in schools, history books downplay these atrocities as curiosities of the past. In 2005, a German zoo was accused of planning to include African tribespeople as part of a jungle exhibit. The idea was cancelled only after public outrage, and museums around the world still house bones, skulls, and artifacts taken from colonized peoples, without permission, without return. So, while the cages are gone, the mindset lingers. But there's one question we haven't answered. Why were people so comfortable watching this? To cage a human, you must first convince yourself they are not human, that they are less, different, other. And once that belief takes hold, cruelty becomes theater. The audience wasn't full of monsters, it was full of ordinary people, families, students, teachers, who were taught that what they were seeing was natural. Propaganda did the rest. Newspapers printed lies, textbooks taught myths, and every exhibit told the same story. You are here, they are there, and that is the order of things. It worked then, it still works now in ways we often don't see. Otabenga's cage is gone, but his face remains. It haunts us in every photo of a grinning crowd around a crying child, in every museum label that calls stolen culture art, in every silent moment we choose to forget, because this isn't just history, it's a warning. When entertainment becomes exploitation, when science loses its soul, when people become products, we don't just lose others, we lose our humanity. And if we don't remember what happened in those cages, we might just build them again. This was the disturbing history of human zoos. Now it's up to us to make sure it never returns.